You know, for me, I think fundamentally entrepreneurship is about making something happen that wasn't going to happen anyway. So the extent to which entrepreneurs have done that is the extent to which they've been successful. This year has been a year for entrepreneurs. But broadly speaking, I think there have been some significant advances that we will see in the long term that would impact entrepreneurs. Events like the recent South Africa joining the trade deal that the African Union is looking to bring out broadly. Obviously, we're waiting for other countries, big countries, to join in. We have the introduction of the Human Capital Index by the World Bank, which is set to replace GDP, which is hugely, hugely significant. And of course, in the last few hours, we've seen the Trump administration commenting on China and Russia's interest in Africa, as well as their own interest in Africa, creating a scenario where I believe positions Africa as a continent that can really lead the way in a world of great uncertainty. But all of that is very high level. What we now need to look at, how does this play out over the years to come to benefit the small, medium-sized entrepreneurs on the continent?
Sean, of course, just in 2017, of course, according to Forbes, tech startups in Africa raked in funds worth $195 million, and that was over the course of the year. This year, we haven't had, a breakdown of the numbers that we're seeing from venture capitalists or even seed capital per se. Tell me, when you compare the 2 years, last year, 2017, and this year, which one do you see outweighs the other?
Yeah, I think broadly speaking, you're right. 195 million last year. This year, I think the figures that have come out so far as I know, for the first half of this year, we're looking at approximately 170 million US dollars raised so far, majority of which have been invested in the fintech space, health tech, as well as agri-tech space. So it's all been centered around technology, which is no surprise or no different from what we saw in 2017. We're yet to see the figures that come out towards the end of the year. But we are making progress. If you look at the first half of last year compared to the first half of this year's figures that I just mentioned, we're talking about 3 or 4-fold. So we are on track to increasing the amount of funds that are going into these projects on the continent, African startups being able to raise. I think, we need to delve into these figures in detail to really look at, the startups that are receiving this capital and how that's actually translating to solving or creating some of the social economic issues across the continent to allow Africa to advance globally. I think for me, that is the main question. And clearly raising capital is a starting point, but again, it's not the only thing that is going to see Africa really, fulfill on its true potential, given the amount of interest that we've seen, not just from developed nations, but also from emerging markets like Brazil, like India, who have fairly good levels of growth, but still looking at Africa for leadership and looking at Africa for certain opportunities.
Sean, of course, it's interesting when you look back this year where we saw the African Union, of course, signing the Africa Continental Free Trade Area with aims that it will boost intra-African trade by 52%, of course. And it's interesting, again, when you see countries like South Africa jumping on board. We need only 22 countries to ratify this so it can be implemented. But before we get overexcited about the AFCFTA, why don't we take a look back at the regional trading blocs themselves? How much of intra-regional trade are we looking at, and has this had any impact to small and medium enterprises? Has this had an impact to startup entrepreneurs? I mean, give me an outlook on this.
Yeah, I think we've made progress as far as regional integration goes, and I think that in itself, regions like the ECOWAS have called for the bold step to create a Pan-African trade agreement. So I think there's certainly been progress there. Again, these very high-level trade agreements need time to filter down to the small, medium-sized enterprises, the policies that need to be in place from a country level to be able to see those happen. But generally speaking, small, medium-sized entrepreneurs typically are now seeing the benefits of regional integration. You know, on the East Bloc, there's usually that entrepreneurship ecosystem that you know, collaborate with each other, invest with each other. Nairobi being one, obviously Kampala, and then also on the Southern Bloc, you know, South Africa leading the way. You got Malawi, you got Botswana, Namibia. There is that regional integration that has started to have effect over the years of government policy. So it does take time, but I think we always need to look at the detail of these agreements and ensure that we have a long-term view to seeing it through. And I think that is more important than just securing the agreement in the first instance. Actually, the agreement has a specific purpose. So it's important that that's seen through and it filters down to entrepreneurs. But as far as regional integration goes, I think we're seeing the impact. And if, you know, when I go to East Africa, when I go to South Africa, you can see the ecosystem being built and getting stronger and stronger. So I think there's certainly an impact there. And excited to see how this Pan-African trade deal goes.
Analysts do argue that artificial intelligence is the biggest thing that has happened ever since the internet came around. Tell me, we've seen Microsoft, of course, launching the cloud for social good, and we've seen also Google coming into the space, and also with AI for social good, artificial intelligence for social good. But have all of this, you know, had any particular push for entrepreneurship? I mean, ultimately, there was say that the AWS could help small enterprises here in Africa be able to have space on their cloud services. But tell me, have we seen any of this pushing the entrepreneurship, you know, space in Africa, or it's just there?
I think certainly it will be inaccurate to say it hasn't made any impact at all. I think the question is the level of impact it has made, and if it really serves the purpose of Africa, not just solving the continental issues that we have, but taking a seat on the global table, solving some of the global issues that we have. Now, it has made an impact. The extent to which it has started to solve or advance entrepreneurship as far as entrepreneurs solving global African entrepreneurs solving global issues, I would say not yet. And I think these issues of, you know, artificial intelligence and, you know, these fancy terminology that is being created, I think it's now time to really look at their impact. Now, I think there's certainly a place for you know, artificial intelligence, and there is the opportunity as well as the threat of artificial intelligence. But the key here is you know, African entrepreneurs really using artificial intelligence for their own good versus artificial intelligence really running the show moving forward. And really that question really comes down to our education system. You know, how we cultivate, how we educate the African youth to be able to work alongside artificial intelligence or create the artificial intelligence that would help us solve other problems in the future. But it's about us using technology rather than technology using us. And as I said, time will tell us as far as how this goes, but we are certainly banking on natural intelligence versus artificial intelligence, because we think that that's the biggest opportunity that a continent has. We've got bright minds, we've got talented entrepreneurs. We just need to create the environment for them to cultivate their own natural intelligence to solve the global issues that we face at the moment.
Sean, I would love to let you go, but then I want to look at intellectual property before I let you go. Tell me, how crucial is this when we see governments like that of the United States putting in new accounts of about 38.2% to the country's GDP, and of course translating into about $6 trillion a year. How can Africans actually bank on this? Because we've seen also countries like Rwanda picking up the intellectual property laws this year and strengthening them. Tell me, and that will be my last one.
Yeah. So the issue of intellectual property is a very, very important issue for us. And as I said, we can speak about what is important to us and how that really works in reality. I think for African entrepreneurs, the idea of intellectual property is to ensure that the ideas, the solutions that are created here in Africa are protected and are protected for us. And one of the technologies that is very useful for us in doing so is the blockchain technology. And we are in fact implementing that on our platform to allow African entrepreneurs to safely bank on intellectual property in the right way. And I think the first and foremost thing is being able to secure the idea in the right way, on the right platform, and the decentralized nature of the blockchain technology certainly allows it to be allocated to the individual or the group whose intellectual property belongs to, and then from there we can reliably bank on this property or this asset.